My name is Amelia Carter, and for 27 years I believed I had a loving family. In my town of Riverton, nestled between rolling hills and tranquil rivers, I grew up in a home filled with laughter and warmth, or so I thought. I was the responsible and caring daughter, the one who excelled in school and balanced family burdens on my shoulders, while my younger brother, Luke, flourished under the spotlight, basking in the adoration of our parents. Oh, how proud I was of the role I played in our family, thinking that one day I would earn my place in our family's history. Yet that illusion shattered like glass the moment I sat, trembling with anticipation, in the lawyer's office, surrounded by my parents and younger sister, Chloe. We had gathered at the old wooden table, a piece of furniture that once felt warm and comforting like a hug, now stripped of its kindness and turned into something cold and foreboding, reminiscent of a courtroom rather than a family haven. I could smell the polished wood and faint aroma of aged paper lingered in the air, mixing with the anxious energy that surrounded us. My heart raced as the lawyer shuffled through the papers, the sound of rustling pages punctuating the silence and echoing my growing dread. The air was thick with unspoken words, a tension that sat heavily in my chest, making it hard to breathe. It had been only 2 weeks since my grandfather passed away, leaving behind a gaping hole in our family's fabric, the ache still evident in our conversations and late-night reminiscences. Amelia, do you remember the summer we spent at his cabin? Chloe whispered, breaking the tense quiet. Her eyes sparkled with memories, but I could not conjure the same joy. I merely nodded, my mind racing, drowning in a whirlpool of emotions. Nothing could prepare me for the emotional turmoil that would soon engulf me. The lawyer cleared his throat and the room hushed. I caught a glimpse of my father's expressions, his brow furrowed with concern, his fingers tapping nervously on the surface of the table. With a confident voice, the lawyer began to read the will. To my beloved grandson, Luke Carter, I leave all my assets. The words hung in the air, twisting the atmosphere and sending sharp spikes of disbelief through my heart. Was I hearing correctly? I looked over at my brother, my golden brother, sitting there with a smug smile plastered across his face. He had the world wrapped around his fingers, and now he was going to inherit everything. Your grandfather believed you would do great things with this, the lawyer continued. My throat tightened as I fought back the bile of betrayal that rose within me. $1 million just for him? My mind spun, and I felt as if the floor had given way beneath me. I glanced at my parents, their faces brightened with pride but at my expense. My father's eyes sparkled with admiration directed exclusively at Luke, as if I were a mere blur in the background. The forks and knives on the table glimmered like daggers, all of them driven deep into my heart. How could this happen? My life's work, the late-night study sessions, the endless sacrifices, the way I joyfully took up the burdens of the family while Luke chased his dreams, were they all for nothing? I choked, a small sound escaped my lips, the betrayal left me gasping. $1 million, I whispered almost inaudibly as I felt the color drain from my face, my life flashing before my eyes, a life spent in the shadows of my brother's successes. The sacrifices I had made came rushing back, a relentless wave that threatened to drown me. I had always been the responsible daughter, supporting my family, smoothing out rough edges, while Luke basked in accomplishments of his making. I had been squared away in the periphery, quietly achieving my own milestones, but they meant nothing now. Are you okay, Amelia? Chloe asked, her voice laced with concern, but it didn't pierce the fog enveloping me. Her innocent affection cut through my anger like a knife, but I could not reply. Instead, I sat in utter shock, hearing the rest of the lawyer's words filter through the haze. I wanted to scream, to rip apart the suffocating facade of my family's happiness, but all I could do was stay silent and still, a statue in a storm. They'll be celebrating him, and I'll be left here, I thought bitterly, as if my heart, once an open space for love and acceptance, was now a cage of resentment. Luke's achievements had always been a cause for family celebrations, but I never imagined that the ultimate accolade would come flooding in the form of $1 million inheritance. While they praised him at family gatherings, I quietly faded into the backdrop, a shadow living in my own home. As a little girl, I had looked up to him, however now I could only flood the space with my internal rage. This is wrong, I thundered inside myself, fists clenched tightly in my lap. How could they do this to me? When the lawyer finished reading the will, I could feel the air shift. The silence that followed was filled with electric anticipation, but for me it was a deafening absence of acknowledgement, recognition, or love. My family seemed lost in some euphoric celebration of Luke's wealth, while I felt like a ghost wandering through the layers of joy that trapped me within their revelry. Congratulations, buddy. My father exclaimed, grinning wide at Luke. You deserve this, you have always worked so hard. The words slithered into my mind like snakes, each syllable laced with poison. Luke beamed at their praise, basking in the warmth of shallow affection, while my chest transformed into a tight knot of fury. With every passing second, I felt my mind fraying at the edges, the fabric of my identity unraveling. I fed off my chaos with a fire that burned against the rule of stoicism I had upheld for so long. They thought they could ignore me, dismiss me so easily. I was not just a sideline character in this twisted play, I was Amelia Carter, and I had a life waiting for recognition. Wait a minute, I finally erupted, breaking the spell slowly weaving around my family's joy. I felt eyes turn sharply in my direction. What about me? What about my sacrifices? All the times I put aside my dreams to take care of Luke, to care for this family? The words burst forth, raw and unfiltered. I could feel warmth creeping up my neck and flooding my cheeks. For decades, I had been a dutiful daughter, obedient and quiet, but something shattered inside me that day. Nothing, this is all I get, my voice trembled, underscored with a pain I never knew I held. Amelia, my mother began, worry etched on her face, but I cut her off, my emotions propelling me forward like an avalanche. No, don't you dare, I've sacrificed so much, and for what? To be ignored as if I don't exist. I felt flames dance in my chest. A wild mixture of hurt and anger breathed life into the competitive spirit I always stifled. Why had I always put Luke's needs before my own? The bitter taste of resentment pooled in my mouth, thick and sour. I am just as much a part of this family. I wanted to scream, my voice reverberating off the walls of the lawyer's modest office. I have always been here. I was the one who excelled in academics while you cheered for him. I was also the one who had to watch while you turned your blind eye when I succeeded. What did I do to deserve being sidelined like this? I could see confusion and discomfort ripple across my family's faces, but in that moment their discomfort fed my anger. Honey, it is what he wanted, my mother stammered, attempting to soothe me, but I wasn't ready to be soothed. Anguish coursed through my veins as I regarded my family, and the familiar four walls of our family haven felt more like a cage. Just what he wanted? I spat, my hands curling into fists as if I could crush the memories that had led me here. What about what I wanted? Every time I stepped back to allow Luke to experience his moment, I did it thinking it might be for the good of the family. You all seemed so happy I thought my role mattered. But now I see it was all a lie. My voice cracked, despair echoing behind the anger. An eerie silence met my outburst, a stillness that hung in the air like an uninvited guest. I could feel the uncertainty ripple across my family's faces as they attempted to piece together their perception of me. Would they finally comprehend how overlooked I had been, how the years of devotion just faded into nothing at all? Amelia, you need to calm down, Luke finally said, his tone condescending, that infuriating grin still plastered on his face. Calm down, I echoed, disbelief laced with incredulity. You don't get to tell me to calm down, you don't even see me, how could you all do this? The tears threatened to spill forth as I blinked rapidly, feeling the weight of betrayal burdening my heart. Well, maybe if you stepped into the spotlight once in a while, he began, but I cut him off once more, my voice cracking as I shouted, this is not about that. This is about all the years I spent taking care of the family while you drifted seamlessly through life. And that was the moment I felt it, the seeds of a storm beginning to sprout within. I sat at that table watching them revel in his newfound glory while my insides roared like raging thunder. Days turned into an agonizing blur of anger and resentment as the reality of my family's joy deepened the cuts in my heart, and one thought spiraled through my mind. How could they do this to me? So as I listened to Luke regale tales of how he had planned to spend his newfound wealth with gleeful anticipation, I began to conjure my own plans. This was only the beginning. They might have shattered my world, but deep down inside, I felt a flicker of something fierce bubble up, an inkling that revenge could be mine. It was a thought that snaked through my heart, igniting something I had long suppressed, and in that moment I silently vowed that this was far from over. My hands trembled as I gathered the documents, the weight of what I was about to reveal sending a thrill of adrenaline racing through my veins. The kitchen was bathed in the warm glow of the overhead lights, casting shadows that seemed exaggerated and ominous as the family dinner began to drift into banalities. The clinking of forks against plates filled the air and laughter echoed off the walls, but underneath it all I could feel the tension in my bones. The smell of roasted chicken mixed with the sweet undertone of the apple pie cooling on the counter, but the sense that usually comforted me turned bitter, invoking a sense of urgency I could not shake. I had waited long enough, and tonight was the night I would reclaim my grandfather's legacy. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding wildly. My world, the one I had felt crumbling around me after the will was read, suddenly transformed. I had my moment. I glanced toward Luke, who sat at the head of the large dining table, a smug smile plastered across his face, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. He was basking in the glow of the inheritance and the expectations he had cultivated. I could almost see the threads of his dreams weaving together, bright and shiny, $1 million, properties, and the respect everyone would shower upon him for being the favored grandson. You're awfully quiet tonight, Amelia, my mother said, cutting through my thoughts with the warmth of her voice. Is everything okay? I forced a smile, my fingers twitching with the anticipation of revelation. Just thinking, I replied, my voice steady. Thinking about how much I was about to append the carefully crafted fairy tale my family had been living. Thinking about Grandpa. Ah, your grandfather, my mother sighed, her eyes softening with affection. Such a great man, it's a shame not everyone sees the world the way he did. Yeah, I saw Luke shift uncomfortably in his seat, and I resolved not to let my emotions waver. This was the moment I had to seize, even if it terrified me. I glanced around the table at my family members, their eyes darting my way with curiosity and confusion. The laughter had faded, replaced by an air thick with unspoken words. Gripping the documents tightly, I felt the coarse texture of the paper grounding me in purpose. I found something, I announced, letting the words fall like stones into a still pond. The ripples of surprise spread as all conversations came to an abrupt halt, their gazes shifting toward me. I positioned the collected evidence before me, the folders stacked like a fortress, daring them to challenge me. A chill coursed through the air as I slowly opened the top folder, revealing photographs of my grandfather's treasures. You all think you know what he left behind, I continued, my voice dropping to a near whisper. But he had secrets, things the will didn't mention. What are you talking about? Luke finally spoke, confidence wavering, the forced smile fading. We got everything, that's what the lawyer said. His brow furrowed, and I could see his demeanor shift from casual to wary. The confidence he donned like armor began to crack. Did the lawyer tell you about these? I held up a faded photograph, the edges worn from time, depicting my grandfather in combat, his eyes fierce and resolute. A collection of medals glinted in the sun behind him, a testament to his bravery. Is that a war photo? My mother's voice rose, concern and curiosity mingling in her tone. I could see her anticipating the worst and reflecting on the memories of a man she loved dearly. Not just a photo, I retorted, flipping to the next page that displayed an inventory list of artifacts my grandfather had tucked away. These are artifacts from his time in the war, tangible reminders of his legacy. He didn't just serve, he collected pieces of history. This helmet here, this uniform, worth easily hundreds of thousands. My heart drummed wildly in my chest, and the exhilaration coursed through every word I spoke. These aren't just memories to him, they represent courage, losses, and the hope of returning home. Silence enveloped the room, thick and heavy. I watched as Luke's face twisted in concentration. You can't be serious, he stuttered, the bravado quickly unraveling into disbelief. I am serious, I declared, the conviction in my voice rising. While you were standing tall with that shiny inheritance, I was uncovering the truth of the legacy Grandpa wanted remembered. He trusted me with these stories. I worked hard to get proof that these were his true treasures. My mother's face was a mixture of pride and confusion, her gaze darting between me and Luke. Amelia, I didn't know, she admitted, her voice wavering slightly. Why didn't you tell us before? I let my frustration simmer, feeling the urge to reveal everything. Because you wouldn't have believed me, you all have been so busy fighting over a pile of money that you forgot the history behind it. Grandpa wanted more than just wealth to pass down, he wanted these stories remembered. Look, those items belong to him and are worth a lot, but it all falls under sentimental value, Luke shot back, anger curling his lip. You think just because you found some papers that changes everything? They were never mentioned in the will for a reason. There is a reason for everything, Luke. I leaned forward, the heat radiating from my voice. These artifacts speak volumes about who he was and the sacrifices he made. This isn't about money for me, it is about honoring him and exposing how little you seem to care about his true legacy. You can't just say things like that, Luke growled, his face reddening with frustration. You're trying to destroy everything we have worked for. This is family, Amelia. No, Luke, I said, my heart pounding as I stood my ground. What you value is a stack of cash, and what I care about are the lives that were lost, the memories my grandfather held dear. You may have the title of heir, but you can't buy a legacy, you just can't. A tension crackled in the air, breaths held, and I could see the storm of emotions swirling through the room, battling against silence. I could feel the satisfaction in my chest building as Luke scowled, caught between his greed and realization of his misconceptions. What do you want? He demanded, shoving back his chair, the wood scraping harshly against the floor. You think you can just come in here with your old papers and convince me that I don't deserve what's rightfully mine? I want you to realize that blood isn't everything, I stated firmly. And you need to recognize the sacrifices our grandfather made. His life was not weighed in dollars and cents. My words echoed in my ears, louder than I anticipated. My mother's voice broke in. Enough, both of you. She looked at each of us, her eyes filled with a mixture of love and disappointment. Amelia, I remember how much your grandfather loved you. You were his favorite. And Luke, as much as you are my son, you've always been so quick to claim victory without understanding the costs involved. Luke's lips pressed together in a line, a blend of anger and frustration flaring in his eyes, and it hurt to see that anger, a reflection of what all of us faced when our lives were entangled with expectations and betrayals. I kept the documents in my grip, determined not to let go. You want to play favorites? I continued, my voice low and measured. This is my way of rewriting the story. I will tell the tale Grandpa wanted us to hear, and you can either join me or stand aside and miss the point. The silence stretched on, heavy with unsaid words and thickening resentment. I felt powerful, intricate strands of anger weaving through my family, forcing them to confront parts of themselves they often ignored. Luke's bravado had shattered, now the flicker of uncertainty passed across his face. It felt like flipping a chessboard, the pieces scattered and the game reevaluated. Fine, Luke snapped, arms crossed, his unwillingness to let me see him falter still lingering. Let's see what you have, but don't expect this to end well, Amelia. As I leveled my gaze at him, each part of me resolved to shake the foundations of our twisted narrative. You'd be surprised what we're overlooking, Luke. This is just the beginning. Each word felt electric, zipping through the silence, and I thought of the words my grandfather had often shared, how they echoed in my mind as I fought to reclaim his story. The battle lines had been drawn. Their complacency was no match for my willingness to scrap everything to reveal the truth, to unearth the legacy hidden in plain sight, to share a history cloaked in shadows. As I took another deep breath, the anticipation crackled like an electric charge in the air, signaling the end of one story and the birth of another. Every heartbeat resonated as I filled the silence that enveloped the room. The old wooden floor creaked beneath my feet, its familiar echo reminding me that this place, once a haven, had become a battleground. I squared my shoulders, feeling every ounce of the pressure weighing down on me, the air heavy with unspoken words. I turned to my brother, my gaze steady and unwavering. You see, Luke, I said, my voice unwavering, Grandpa had some treasures tucked away, items he cherished and entrusted only to me. Every word flowed with a mixture of adrenaline and relief, a release of years of pent-up frustration finally exploding into the open. I could see his surprise, those wide eyes locking onto mine, uncertainty etched into his features. That reaction ignited a flame in my chest, not just indignation but a potent, intoxicating blend of vengeance and victory. I expanded my hands, showcasing the neatly organized documents I had laid in front of me. Each page trembled slightly under my control, evidence I had dug from the depths of dusty records and long-forgotten emails, a treasure map leading to artifacts worth over $500,000. The thrill of unveiling this truth coursed through me like electricity, shocking our family into confrontation. You're not becoming the sole heir to the Carrington legacy, especially with these missing pieces, I stated, my voice gaining strength with each syllable. I stared hard at my parents, their faces draining of color as if I had physically stolen the life from them. Their shock was palpable, and I relished every second of it. The realization hit them like a truck. They had blinded themselves with favoritism, deliberately neglecting my rightful place in our family narrative. I had been drowning in their preference for too long. Amelia, my father scolded, his voice piercing through the thick tension. There was a mixture of anger and bewilderment there, his eyes narrowed with disbelief. This is unbelievable. You had no right to go digging through your grandfather's belongings. He looked around as if searching for support from my mother, who remained frozen by the doorway, her eyes darting between my father and me. It was my right, I shot back vehemently, every syllable escaping my lips with the fierceness of a hungry wolf. There was no going back now. You're right, he echoed, his voice rising. You think just because you found some old letters, it gives you the right to claim what isn't yours? The desperation in his tone struck me with the force of an emotional fist. Yes. I screamed, the word reverberating off the walls like a bell tolling for the dead. For years, I was the responsible one, always in your shadows, living under the weight of your favoritism. Tell me, did you ever think about how it felt to be overshadowed by your golden boy? The question hung in the air like a dense fog, and for a moment the room fell silent. Luke shifted uneasily, his posture faltering as the distance between us shrank. His shock transformed into a mask of rage. You are just jealous. He snapped, his fingers clenching at his sides as if he could physically grasp the wealth slipping through his fingers. There was a quiver beneath his bravado, a fear crackling in the charged atmosphere. Jealous? The sarcasm dripped from my tongue like venom. Oh no, I'm not jealous at all. I'm grateful to finally have a voice. You cling to your identity as the favorite son while I was miscast as the family wallflower. And look where that got me. I gestured at the expensive documents, the tangible evidence of my rightful claim over the Carrington name. His confidence wavered, just a flicker, but enough for me to see the truth embedded in his eyes. This confrontation was more than over money. It was about my recognition, my identity as a legitimate part of this twisted family legacy. Stop this, my mother pleaded, her voice barely registering above the frenzy. You will ruin everything. This isn't who you are. Her words were a desperate attempt to reel me back, and my heart twisted nearly in two. She stood there, her eyes welling with tears, caught between her husband and her daughter. I could almost hear the internal struggle she was undergoing, but I had run out of kindness, out of patience. I'm not ruining anything, I spat, stinging with every ounce of hurt I had ever felt. This is about standing up for myself for once in my life. All these years, it was just easy for you to overlook me, to forget my existence because it did not suit your perfect family portrait. I watched her flinch at the raw truth of my words. Your grandfather would, she began, but I cut her off. My grandfather would want me to have these, I insisted, my voice a steady roar. He trusted me in ways you both never could imagine. I was the one who spent countless evenings by his side. It was I who listened to his tales, learned about our family's heritage, about the treasures, the art of holding on to things that mattered. You two, frantically bickering over wealth that should not have been a question of favoritism, completely blind to the worth of my experiences. You never saw me, the room vibrated with the intensity of my words. I could feel the adrenaline pulsing in my veins, a heady mix of pride and fury that had been bottled for far too long. This was my moment to reclaim my identity, a battle for recognition beneath that dreadful mantle of unfairness that had paused my life. Right now I'm standing here with the proof to force your eyes open, I stated, holding up the documents again as if waving a flag of victory before a severe battle. These pieces of paper hold my future. Can you understand that? Or will you continue to blind yourselves with your misconceptions of how this family should operate? Luke attempted to regain his composure, clenching his jaw as though he were squeezing in all the anger he had built up. It doesn't matter, he said, his tone suddenly shifting, almost dismissive. You don't need to ruin everything over some stupid artifacts. Stupid, I scoffed. Those are our family's legacies, our history. You would throw it away just to retain your imaginary throne. The words rolled off my tongue like molten lava, each one aimed squarely at his heart, melting away the pretense he had built. I didn't ask for this, Amelia. You're making it feel like a competition when I never wanted to compete, he shouted back. Exactly, I responded, my heart racing as I realized the truth behind his words. You never wanted to compete because you already knew you had it easy. You never had to fight for what you have, while I was always left on the sidelines. His eyes shifted, and for a moment I saw uncertainty flickering in his gaze. He was no longer sure of his place, the armor of arrogance he had worn so proudly slowly crumbling. I could feel it, that delicious sense of power washing over me. And you want it all to yourself? He snapped, his frustration bubbling over. So you plan on just steamrolling over everyone, over me, over the family? Not over you, Luke, I exclaimed, desperation creeping into my otherwise confident tone. I am fighting for all the moments you stole, for the love you covet, for the attention you take for granted. Those artifacts are my history too. This is not just about money. It is about recognition, about finally being acknowledged as the person I am instead of the shadow of the one you will forever be. I could feel the walls closing in around us with the weight of unresolved tension. Each word settled heavily in the room like a storm waiting to break, and I reveled in the disarray I had created. My parents now seemed small, reduced to their role as spectators to a drama that had played out for years without resolution. Just know this, I warned, my voice dropping to a low growl. I will not let you destroy me anymore. I will take my place, and you will see that favor does not dictate the value of a life. I could see their expressions morphing, the ashen colors gripping their faces, indicating the reality of their actions. With a final glance at Luke, whose confidence had been eroded to virtually nothing, I stepped back. I am not your pawn, I never was. I wanted to absorb this moment, let it etch itself in my memory forever. The taste of victory was sweet, and I could feel the momentum shifting. I was shattering the chains binding me to their denial. As the silence engulfed us again, thicker this time, the only sound was the sharp inhalation of my family, processions of breathing graphic with realization intermingling in the air. I would finally reclaim what was rightly mine, not merely pieces of material wealth, but the right to stand as my own person within this family, no longer overshadowed, but finally upon the platform I deserved, ready to take my place. The dust settled that night, but I continued to feel the electric thrill thrum beneath my skin, a visceral reminder of the storm I had unleashed. My heart raced as I recalled how I had turned the tables on a family that had buried my worth under the weight of neglect and indifference. Organizing the auction for my grandfather's artifacts had been a whirlwind of late nights and trembling anticipation. I had gone from feeling like a ghost in my own home to being the orchestrator of my family's legacy. The pieces I displayed, each an emblem of my grandfather's life, had stories etched into them, tales of bravery that had gone unheard for too long. Now, as I stood behind the cash register of my new boutique, a cozy sanctuary adorned with artifacts and tales of valor, the air was rich with the scent of polished wood mixed with a hint of fresh paint. I smiled at the thought. The $500,000 I had aimed for was no longer just a figure, it was the ticket to my independence, the means to weave my own narrative away from the shadows of my past. Mom had been furious when I first broke the news about the auction. Her eyes had widened, spitting indignation as she cornered me in the living room, the family heirlooms draped like ghosts behind her. You're throwing away our family history, Amelia, she had shouted, her voice high and trembling. But no amount of false pride could disguise the realization that my auction had captivated the townsfolk of Riverton. It turned out they were far more entranced by my grandfather's legacy than I ever imagined. Elderly men and women with tear-streaked faces had shared stories with me that night, stories I had yearned to tell, stories of a hero who lived larger than life. As the cash register chimed over and over, it felt like a symphony. Each time the drawer opened, it was a sound of empowerment, a song of freedom that drowned out the echoes of my childhood home. But that day, everything changed when I looked up and saw him. Amelia, can we talk? Luke's voice cut through the buzz of my boutique like a knife. His familiar features, once etched in arrogance, now seemed worn and tired. The confidence that used to bubble from him now hung low, weighed down by regret that draped around his shoulders like an old, ragged blanket. A flash of memories rolled through me, endless arguments, the way he laughed too loud at my failures, how he always walked away unscathed while I shoved down the bitterness. What do you want to talk about, Luke? How you were chosen as the favorite? I shot back, my words sharper than I intended. The familiar ache welled just below my ribcage, ready to spill over. His eyes dropped, the weight of my words visibly settling in. No, no, that's not it, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. I was blind to it. Mom and Dad just never saw you. I never saw you. Can we fix this? There it was, a plea that offered the slightest glimpse of the little boy who had once been my confidant, the brother whose silent laughter used to fill the empty spaces in our home. But the boy I wanted to believe in was buried beneath years of exclusion and resentment. I weighed my options, the history glaring back at me, reminding me how easy it would be to dig my heels in and let the familiar flood of bitterness wash over me. I could feel the pull toward anger, but it was strangely subdued by something deeper simmering within me, a flicker of understanding. It's not as simple as that, Luke, I replied, crossing my arms defensively. You don't get to waltz back in and expect me to forgive everything. I know I hurt you, I know I didn't fight for you when I should have, but he paused, looking deeper into my eyes. But I want to listen, I want to understand. The weight of his words hung in the air, a quiet challenge glimmering between the two of us. The store faded away, it was just the two of us standing in the serene stillness, stripped of every past indignity. I caught a glimpse of the boy I had once treasured, a boy I had buried just as he had buried the truth. I took a steadying breath, feeling raw and exposed. Memories washed over me, far too many to count. You don't know what it was like for me, Luke, all those times I sat alone while you basked in the family's attention. You were the artist, the favorite, the one who didn't need to fight for love. I just wanted to be seen. I wanted to share stories about our grandfather too, to hold on to something meaningful, but all I got was the echoes of your laughter. He shifted on his feet, the corners of his mouth tipping down. I was wrong. I let our parents blind me. I thought I was the one they needed me to be, the successful son who never faltered, but I was too focused on what I was achieving and never noticed what was happening with you. His voice broke slightly, filled with an aching sincerity. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I should have reached out to you. I felt a wave of conflicting emotions crash over me, sadness, nostalgia, and the flicker of hope dared to emerge. Do you really mean that? My voice wavered as I searched his features. Or are you just trying to play the role of the concerned brother now that things have flipped? I can't blame you for thinking that. I wouldn't trust me either. He swallowed hard, the harsh throat sound echoing in the small space of my boutique, an unexpected sound of vulnerability. But I want to prove myself to you. I want to be different. I hesitated, the world around me blurring into colors of confusion. This wasn't the confrontation I had envisioned. All my preparation for the inevitable argument was crumbling away, replaced by an overwhelming desire for connection. Could I really allow myself to hope that this moment could lead something better? Only if you're willing to listen, I thought, recalling the mantra I had set for myself during the auction's whirlwind of emotions. Was I too far gone to accept this olive branch he held out, or could I find a way to reshape our family's narrative together? Only if you're willing to listen, I said, my voice firmer yet softer than I ever thought I could be with him. Yes, he nodded, his eyes brightening with an intensity that pierced through the sorrow etched on his face. I want to learn. To understand you, to understand everything, to understand what we lost. I could see the sincerity etched into his features, the fluttering hope in his eyes mirrored my own. This was not an easy journey, I knew it would take more than words. But in those moments, standing beneath the warm light of my boutique, surrounded by the remnants of my grandfather's legacy, I felt the shrouds of my past begin to lift. Then let's talk, I said, pushing back against the years of resentment. If we were going to chart a new course, we had to face the storm and sail through its chaos together. We settled into a makeshift seating arrangement among the artifacts, wooden crates that once held treasures now serving as our makeshift chairs. I felt a wave of nostalgia surge as I pointed out the intricacies of the artifacts around us, starting with the compass intricately etched with my grandfather's name, the one that had guided him across treacherous paths. This was his compass, Luke, I said, tracing my finger along its engraved form. It was said to always lead him home. It feels like it led you home too, he replied slowly, scanning the breathtaking pieces that framed our dialogue. I could see his demeanor shifting, sensing the ripple of new understanding brewing within him. It did, I said softly, allowing the warmth to grow in my chest. I never thought I could find peace away from the shadows of our past, but now. Maybe there is a path forward, a new legacy we could create. His eyes lit up, revealing the boy I once knew. Let's share our stories, let's uncover the truth that was hidden from us. You were always the voice of reason, the one who lived in the moments I missed. We can start from there. His words held a promise, a covenant to create something more than just fractured ties. We may have emerged from a storm, battered and bruised, but here in this new sanctuary I had forged and in the trembling bond we were starting to mend, we had a chance to uncover a legacy woven together with light and understanding. We spent the next hours talking, each artifact igniting stories we had shared and those we had missed, until the sun dipped low, casting an amber glow through the boutique. I could see the knot of our past loosening, the thread of hope intertwining through our blooming communication. The storm that had once raged inside my heart began to settle. Here in the echoes of my grandfather's legacy and under the canopy of understanding, I finally felt the weight of a new beginning. As days turned into weeks, the boutique flourished, drawing in patrons eager to learn about my grandfather's history. It was a reality that felt surreal to me, a dream blossoming from a chaotic past. Every inch of the store carried not just the weight of history, but the warmth of memories. My fingers often brushed against the cool, polished surfaces of artifacts, and I could almost feel the heartbeat of the stories they held. Each day, I immersed myself deeper into the fabric of the past, transforming the boutique into a sanctuary where stories of bravery were celebrated and shared. I poured every ounce of love and energy into this place, from curating exhibits to setting a welcoming atmosphere filled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and the sweet whisper of aged wood. The walls adorned with framed photographs of my grandfather served as silent witnesses to every triumph, every love, and every valiant step he had taken. The belief in connecting generations ignited my passion, making each artifact a bridge to the future. I remembered the days leading up to now, the excitement in children's eyes as they listened to tales of courage, the little hands reaching out to touch history, and the laughter that filled the space as students engaged in lively discussions about their own family stories. Some evenings, I collaborated with local schools, instilling a sense of curiosity about the past. The conversations I ignited in young minds would ripple through time, and I felt proud to be a part of that. One unforgettable day, a group of eager students visited the boutique, their enthusiasm tangible as they gravitated towards a display featuring my grandfather's medals. Did he really save people during the war? A small boy asked, eyes wide as he stared at the shiny medals. I could feel the pride swell in my chest, prompting a smile. He did, and not just once. Each medal carries a story of bravery and sacrifice. Would you like to hear one? They gathered around me, and I knew at that moment my grandfather's legacy was secure, a legacy that began to weave itself into the fabric of this community. Among these shared moments of growth and healing was Luke. His visits to the boutique initially felt awkward, like navigating uncharted waters after a storm. But as days passed, we began to peel back the layers of resentment, replacing the cold distance with warmth. Each visit morphed into an open conversation about where we went wrong as a family. You know, Luke said one afternoon as he helped rearrange some artifacts, I never really understood how much you sacrificed when everything fell apart. He looked at me with a heavy gaze, one that acknowledged the weight of our shared history. I set down the frame I was straightening, taking a breath as I chose my words carefully. I'm not sure I even understood it myself until I had a chance to rediscover all of this. I gestured around to the space that had transformed from a mere building into a heartfelt testament of resilience. The boutique became my way of reclaiming what was lost. It wasn't just about the artifacts, it was about healing. We spoke late into the nights, our deep conversations unraveling the thick web of childhood struggles. Luke shared his regrets, confessing moments where he had chosen anger over understanding, and I listened as he began to recognize the sacrifices I had made, sacrifices that had once seemed invisible to him. In those moments, the bitterness of our childhood rivalry dissolved like sugar in warm water. Luke, my brother, became not just family, but a friend working alongside me in celebrating our roots and uncovering our past in a way we had both longed for. One crisp autumn afternoon, the sun hung low in the sky, painting a golden hue across the boutique as the soft chatter of visitors filled the air. I felt that familiar nudge of contentment warm my heart, wrapping around me like a cherished blanket on a chilly day. Patrons roamed the tightly arranged displays, crossing over shiny oak floors that creaked softly under their weight, mingling with the delightful aroma of spiced cider that wafted in from a nearby booth. My senses were alive, the warmth of the sun on my skin, the low hum of excitement as a child speculated about the stories behind a vintage suit, the laughter radiating from a group of visitors debating over the best artifacts to take home as souvenirs. As I paused to soak in the beauty of it all, my eyes wandered to the framed photographs of my grandfather interspersed with his artifacts. Each frame, each picture held whispers of his adventures, and I could hear laughter and footsteps echoing through those memories as if he stood right there, sharing in our joy. Suddenly, a knock at the door pulled me from my reverie, the sound sharp against the gentle background murmur. I turned, my heart leaping into my throat, as I recognized the hesitant faces of my parents stepping carefully into my sanctuary. Their cautious smiles were like rays of sunlight breaking through gray clouds, holding both uncertainty and hope. Amelia, my mother began, her voice quivering like leaves rustling in a soft breeze, we want to apologize for our mistakes. The sincerity in her eyes quickly melted the barrier I had built over the years, and I felt myself soften. I allowed the years of hurt to dissolve as I took a moment to process their presence. The years of silence, the anger, the pain built up like a wall had almost made standing in the same room feel like a violation, yet here we were, gathered in this space of healing. Yes, the past cannot be rewritten, I finally spoke, my voice steady but trembling with emotion. But we can shape the future. I glanced sideways to my father, who stood firm but vulnerable beside my mother, his hands fidgeting in his pockets, a small gesture telling me he too felt the weight of what was at stake. Luke, to my other side, stood like a grounding force, adding to the delicate thread of connection weaving back together between us. Four broken pieces of a family, ready to be molded into something beautiful once more. For a fleeting moment, vulnerability opened a door to forgiveness. I forgive you, I stated, my voice enriched with determination, the words filling the quiet air around us like the first notes of a long-forgotten song. It felt liberating, a balm for the scars of the past. I saw the tears welling in my mother's eyes, glistening like the morning dew as they formed pools reflecting her relief. The emotional weight around us began to lift, and I took a deep breath, realizing that the revenge that once consumed my thoughts and activities had in its own way set me free, not just in claiming my assets, but in reclaiming my family legacy. I want to restore balance within our family, I added reassuringly, and my words hung in the air like the final piece of a puzzle fitting perfectly into place. With each soft-spoken word, the shadows of betrayal lifted. I extended my hand toward my brother. Luke took it, his grip strong and steady, affirming our renewed understanding. There was a quiet strength in our handshake, like an unspoken promise to forge a path that celebrated our homecoming in ways we once took for granted. That means everything to me, Luke replied, his voice unwavering, a heavy weight lifted from his shoulders. The vulnerability in his eyes mirrored the lightness blossoming within me, and I allowed the warmth to envelop all of us. With a single moment of clarity, I understood these actions were never a matter of riches. Our journey became a resurrection of love, belonging, and unity amidst what had once seemed like the fragmented chaos of our past. The comforting buzz of the boutique continued around us, life moving in vibrant colors beyond the walls, yet within our small corner, time felt suspended. My parents' expressions shifted, no longer filled with apprehension, but instead illuminated by a mixture of hope and newfound respect. They had come to understand that the mistakes of yesterday could not overshadow the potential of tomorrow. My father stepped forward, his voice raspy yet full of sincerity. No, we can't change what we did, but we will do our best to mend our bond. The sincerity in his words struck a chord deep within me, reinforcing the connection we were forging. It was a stepping stone we both needed to take. As the tears spilled from my mother's eyes, wetting the fabric of her sleeve, I felt a spark of joy mixed with sorrow. It has been so hard, Amelia, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Every time I came into this boutique, I was reminded of everything we lost. We can't take it all back, I said gently, but we can learn to support each other as a family. I want us to build something lasting. And suddenly, our collective past, riddled with hurt and resentment, transformed into a shared future of lessons learned and unbreakable bonds forged. We spent time reconnecting amidst the warm glow of the boutique, discussing everything from family history to dreams for the future. The laughter that echoed in the nostalgic walls was an unfamiliar melody, sweet and light, hinting at the shared memories we were creating anew. There was something magical in the air, a sense of redemption that hung overhead like a blanket fort, sealing us into our little world. As evening fell, the autumn sky turned a deep shade of purple and the boutique dimmed its lights, embracing a soft, cozy ambience. We began to venture beyond mere apologies and acknowledgments. What do you think about hosting a workshop, a family history night? Luke suggested, excitement flickering in his eyes. We can invite the community to share their stories too. The advisor in me sparked into action, already envisioning how I might curate such an event where history could tangibly weave through our lives once again. I love that idea, I exclaimed, an infectious energy surging through me. The thought of bringing our experiences to even broader horizons filled me with joy. We can create a space where others can share their legacies just like mine. A family history night would allow others the comfort of storytelling, the pleasure of laughter, and the collaboration of spirits finding unity in their own diverse paths. That evening marked the dawn of a new era, one where each of us, broken and imperfect, threaded together not just family ties, but a tapestry of individual stories that spoke to resilience, healing, and rebirth. These actions extended beyond our nucleus. They spoke to friends, neighbors, and children, reflecting the lessons we learned along the way. As I stepped outside into the fresh coolness of the night, the universe twinkled above us like the endless stories waiting to be told. In their brilliant light, I saw promise and hope, intertwined with love and understanding, forever transforming the narrative of a broken family into one of unity and strength.